Hi, I'm Ayoade and I'm a fellow here at the DeYoung Museum. What is the environment and how do you experience it? You may not think of where you live as the environment. You may think of it as somewhere you go to, but really our environment is everywhere that we live, work, and play. Not everyone experiences the environment in the same way. Who has access to land? Who has access to the land of their ancestors? Does everyone have a say in how the land we live on is treated? Considering relationships to and loss of land provides a key framing for how we think about Black history and liberation. Before we look at some artworks, let's first consider histories of Black experiences of land here in the Bay Area. The Bayview-Hunters Point neighborhood is one of many places where Black communities and communities of color experience a disproportionate impact of environmental degradation. To learn more about this, I talked to Aaliyah Den Salhuddin. Aaliyah is an educator, dance performing artist, and doctoral student who grew up in Bayview-Hunters Point and studies and writes about its history.
There's a nuclear testing that happened here. This has been an industrial waste site. The coroner's office is here. There's a PG&E plant here. 80% of the city's wastewater is processed here in Bayview-Hunters Point. Despite all this, the Black community that came to inhabit Bayview-Hunters Point was determined to stay. They came and they literally lived on the water's edge. So where else were they to go?
Ronald Lockett was a multimedia artist whose work often focused on the environment. Lockett grew up in Bessemer, Alabama, where he witnessed the environmental and community impacts of the coal and steel industries. He expresses this experience in Poison River, created in 1988. Amidst chaotic swirls, we see hints of a landscape. But this doesn't look like what we might expect to see when we think of a traditional landscape painting. Where is the river? There is no solid boundary where it begins and ends. The poison in the river that Lockett discusses is not confined to the water itself, speaking to the effect of environmental harm on the whole landscape and community.
Bayview-Hunters Point is one of San Francisco's oldest and most historic neighborhoods. Historically African-American, but home to a diverse group of communities. This building right behind me has been the center of arts, of culture, and of conflict. In 1966, it was the site of an uprising after 16-year-old Matthew Peanut Johnson was shot and killed by police officers. Today, it serves as a center for community building and youth upliftment. Bayview-Hunters Point is a contested land and a contested space. The Black community here for decades has fought for remediation of the land. So their struggles for justice have always been tied to struggles for the environment and environmental justice.
Despite environmental injustices within a racist system, Black artists and communities have found ways to remain in relation with land and root that connection in their culture and heritage. Bessie Harvey's work is grounded in her natural surroundings in Alcoa, Tennessee. Her artistry is an expression of her spirituality, a way to honor the sacredness of land and all that comes from it. I Didn't Hear Nobody Pray, made in 1987, is made from found objects. Harvey paid special attention to the way wood twists and turns, and saw figures in the branches and trunks that she collected. If you look closely, you can also see two pairs of eyes near the top of the figure, made of beads and cowrie shells, of significance in African and African-American traditions for their use as jewelry and adornments on clothing, their use as currency, as well as their spiritual meanings. The title is derived from an African-American spiritual song tying the piece to a rich history of African-American music and community knowledge.
Oh, I couldn't hear nobody pray. Nobody pray, oh, way down yonder by myself. I couldn't hear nobody pray, oh, I couldn't.
In giving this name to a natural object, Harvey imbues it with the spiritual significance that she saw across the natural world. There is power in this connection and closeness to the earth, as it's also a connection to ancestry and to community.
The Great Migration brought the majority of Black people to San Francisco and to Bayview-Hunters Point. This was not just a Black community, it was a Black-owned community, and they were determined to stay, to fight for the right to own their homes, to fight for the right to own their businesses, and to fight for the right to have better conditions. The Bayview-Hunters Point community, they came as families, and even though the ground in San Francisco was unstable, they planted deep roots.
Land is important to all stories, and honoring it means knowing how our histories sit upon it. What is the history of the land that you live on? How do you connect or reconnect with the land around you?